Welcome to the Creation Innovation Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth King. Together, we'll have conversations with incredible human beings who have taken their creative outlet and turned it into something innovative. From people leaving the corporate world to be 8-figure entrepreneurs to people who have created books, created a family, or just creating to have fun in the world. We are all in a journey to create something amazing in our lives, and I hope that you find some inspiration of your own here. This is the Creation Innovation Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to Creation Innovation. Today I have my dear friend Rojan here, and this conversation has been so near and dear to my heart, so I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks, Rojan.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And as we were just talking before we started to record, I was thinking how, hold on one second. I can't hear your trash truck or your daughter, but I can hear the phone that never rings. Wait for it. Thanks, Paige, for editing this out. We'll just start over again completely. Okay. The home phone never rings. Okay. Welcome back to Creation Innovation. Thanks for joining us today. I am so excited to actually speak to one of my very, very good friends, Rojan. So thanks for being here and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Rojan has a very unique story. And as we were talking before we started to record, I would like this to touch as many people from as many different aspects as possible. And she agreed in sharing her story, and she shares openly, often on social media in the attempts to help others. And I think as well, it's probably a healing aspect for yourself as well to find that community. Have you found that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sharing has been an effort to heal myself, to feel less alone, to help others feel less alone, who are kind of walking the similar journey than I am. Absolutely.
And that journey, which we haven't yet revealed, is actually, Rojan, why don't you kind of do the intro to what your journey has been?
Yeah. So, my husband and I met in grad school, and we thought we were doing all the right things. We met in grad school. We got our careers off to a good start. We bought a home, and then we thought, okay, this time let's start a family. So I suffered from PCOS, and I knew that for a while. So we went straight to IUI, and we successfully got pregnant with our son Darian on our first try. It was amazing. We were stoked, honestly. All the things had lined up.
Right.
And, fast forward, it was a normal birth and a normal first year. We started seeing some developmental, let's say, delays around 15 months, but we were told by various physicians, including pediatricians and neurologists, that everything was fine. Put him in early intervention and he's going to be just fine. There's nothing going on. Don't worry about it. So at this time, he's around 15, 16 months. And we're like, okay, well, maybe it's time. We want 2 kids. It could take us a while because of our PCOS. So let's try. So we went to a different specialist this time because we had changed insurance carriers, and we tried metformin for PCOS. And lo and behold, the first month that I got on the dose that he wanted to, I got pregnant. And again, things were fine. My pregnancies were fine. I was getting pregnant, with intervention, but I was able to get pregnant. Right. And at this time, my son, Darian, was starting to kind of plateau on his development. And I was getting really concerned. And I was getting really frustrated by his pediatrician. And I had the ability to go to various doctors on my own. So I took it upon myself to get other opinions. Because at one point I told the pediatrician, I said, I don't think we've tested everything. Something is going on, because I was doing all the research on my own. Every night I was on Google. Why is he falling so often? Why was he saying words and then he stopped? What's going on? And she told me I told her, I said, can you do a metabolic screening? I have a hunch that it might be something like that. And she just told me straight. And she said, if it was metabolic, he would have died by now. That was what
Wow.
she told me.
And I just want to stop you real
Yeah,
quick, Rojan,
yeah,
because I feel like so many people, we do listen to our doctors. We
yeah,
do just kind of take that as, the
yeah,
Bible, so to speak, of whatever it is that they're telling us. And for you to listen to your intuition for your child and doing your own research to say, what if it's this? What if it's that? Test this and that, I think just is a testament to the fact that one, you were being your advocate for yourself and for your child. And we are often not even told not that it's not allowed, but that we shouldn't question the authority of the medical community, so to speak. Right. And I remember us even having conversations and I was like, oh no, my son's falling too. And you're like, no, something is different. Right. And the fact that you stayed the course and pushed on this is, I mean, all along, I can tell you how much you've been my hero, but even in these early days
yeah.
when it would have been so easy to just be like, okay, I'll wait a little bit and see.
Yeah, to your point, they're the authority. They are the specialists. We look to them for the answers. And there's that mom gut, right? Where you're just like, this is not okay. Something is wrong. And whether it's, you know, your son's health or it's infertility or it's your own health, like you need to advocate for yourself. And that's what I've learned. And my voice has become stronger because of this. And now realizing how much important it is to question things, and it's okay to question respectfully, but question.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's becoming at this point very clear something is going on.
And
and
how old
i
was he at this point when you were
and
like,
he
okay,
is
it's
he
obvious now?
is yeah, so it all kind of just like crumbled all at once, but he's about 18 months at this
Okay.
point, and he is now almost losing the ability to walk. So he not only is now not maintaining where he is now regressing.
Okay.
And I am fully pregnant by now. And I am a firm believer to do all the genetic screenings. So I did my second trimester screening, and I get a call saying that I tested high risk for a certain disease. And right away, my husband and I were like, we're doing an amnio. We need tests. We've got issues with our son. Now we're being told something could be potentially wrong with our daughter. And this point, we were, nothing was clear to us. We were completely confused as what was going on with our kids.
And
So,
to say her daughter, when she's saying that, she's
yes.
maybe like 4 months pregnant at the time or earlier, right? When
Yeah,
this
I'm
was
about
happening.
20 weeks. I'm about 20
Okay.
weeks. Yeah, so I'm about 20 weeks. So we got a rushed amnio because, we're up against California's timeline on when you can terminate in a second trimester pregnancy, because that is something that was on our mind because we didn't know what was going on. So we get our results from the amnio that she unfortunately was missing a chromosome and had an extra chromosome. So it turns out that I have what's called a balanced translocation that maybe 1 in 500 people have. Most people just have miscarriages and they have no idea that they carry this. But in my case, my breaks were so small that she was anatomically looking like she would be a typical child. But the geneticist told me, and this is her words, that best case would be severe mental retardation. And at that point, I mean, everything is just dark. Like I am now worried about my son. Like, what is going on here? So we were able to get him expedited genetic sequencing, whole exome sequencing. And
Did you
while
feel
we're
like
waiting.
getting the
Yeah.
answers for that pregnancy helped to
Yeah.
convince whoever needed to be convinced
Yeah.
of that we
Yeah.
needed to take this a step further?
It gave me the extra fire I needed under me to get him genetically tested. Got us into a geneticist with the local children's hospital here. Meaning my daughter, really just, it helped him get diagnosed faster, quickly. While we're waiting for his results, my husband and I, we had already decided before we ever had children. And I always tell people this when they are about to try. I say a conversation that you need to have is, are you going to keep your pregnancy or terminate your pregnancy if there is an issue with the pregnancy? This pregnancy was wanted. It was beyond wanted, right? I could feel her. You could see her kicks from the outside. Like, this was my daughter, right? Like,
Right.
this is who I was waiting for her. And we decided that we were going to terminate. Given what was going on with our son, regardless, we had decided if there was anything that was not healthy about the pregnancy, we were going to terminate. And luckily, we live in a state where we have that option. It was horrific, right? Like, just absolutely horrific, the experience. But I was grateful that I had that option.
And I think a lot of
Um,
people having that conversation with a partner prior to it actually being reality is very different, right? Like it's one
yes.
thing if it's just an idea of, okay, what are we going to do if this isn't a
Yeah.
healthy pregnancy when you're waiting for those tests, to
Yeah.
faced with that of, like Rojan said, you're that far along that your body is in full pregnancy. You're
Yes.
feeling the kicks, as seeing
Yes.
her in person, you visibly see somebody who is pregnant and all of those things. So the sensitivity around that emotionally and physically is, you know, exponentially more so than just having those initial conversations, although those are important to have. But when it becomes a reality, it really turns your life upside down.
Yeah, and there's only one or two clinics in the area that do a second trimester termination, and I remember laying there and they were starting the process. It's a 2-day process, and I was in the first step where they insert things to help you dilate. And I remember I was just bawling, and they kept asking because they want consent, right? To like make sure this is what you want to do. And at some point I couldn't even answer anymore. Like, I was
Right.
just hysterical. And at that point is when my husband just looked at the doctor and was just like, we had discussed this before we even had a child or got pregnant, and we're on the same page. Like, yes. And he had to say it for me the final time. Like, you start questioning yourself because you're just tied to that emotion. Now that I look back, I am grateful I had that choice. But you start questioning it in the moment, because you're just so tied to the physical and emotional attachment you have to this
Totally.
you know this
I know
being inside of you. So
even the losses that I had are no comparison. I remember thinking, like, check a heartbeat one more time before we do
yeah.
the DNC, like
Yeah.
check it again,
Yeah.
because there's this thought of you of like, do I believe them? Am I making the right decision? What if, right?
Well, yeah, and I kept telling the geneticist, I said, tell me exactly what she's going to be like if I keep the pregnancy. Because, if you have a child with Down syndrome, it's kind of, I can envision that, right?
Right.
I'm not saying terminate, keep, this is your choice, your child. What I'm saying is a Down syndrome diagnosis, I can see what that looks like.
Right.
For her, I could not see what that looked like. And
Right.
she just kept because I wanted that reassurance that there was going to be an issue, right?
Yeah,
Because I didn't want to lose her. I
of
wanted her.
course.
But she kept telling me that no, there's like, no matter what, when you have a genetically, when you're missing genes or have extra genes like this, there's going to be an issue. Um, so
And
this is no, yeah. Uh-huh.
did you feel that geneticists gave you the emotional support that you needed during that time as well? Because I know the genetic counselors, like, that's what they're there for, right? To kind of explain the situations. Did you feel like you got that at the time?
No, I don't. I mean, I just felt so alone in general and so lost. I'll never forget one of with the high risk doctor, when he called with the results, he told me, he said, "Great news. We know what's wrong with your daughter."
Mhm.
And I said, "What do you have what's called a balanced translocation." I was like, "What do you mean great news? Now this means that every pregnancy from now on, I have this chance of having this issue again." Like, there's just, I feel that sometimes physicians don't take a step back and look at the whole picture or the whole human being that's standing in front of them, right?
Right.
It's just like this, let me just deliver this information. Oh, great. We know the cause. Awesome.
Right.
Well, are you looking at the bigger picture and how that's going to affect this human's life, you know, that you're
Right.
delivering this news to?
What I say all the time is it's
Yeah.
just another day in the office for them, and
Yeah.
it's life-changing moments for
And
us.
that just, I mean, I can tell you exactly where I was when I got that phone call, because that just, it changed my future, right? Um, and you know, I won't go into all the details of termination and how my breast milk came and I had no baby to feed and like all the things that came with after the termination and how like just dark it was, but I still had this son in front of me that I did not know what was happening. So in November was termination. End of December, I'm with my son at therapy because he's in all the therapies like they told me to. And I get a phone call from the same geneticist. And this time the news is even worse, honestly. He was diagnosed with a ultra rare genetic condition called GM1 gangliosidosis. It's a degenerative neurological condition, and he was given 12 years to live. And I mean, I can't even explain what that phone call was like. Um, you know, the termination's gone. She's not here. I don't have to care for her, but I have him. And it turns out that my husband and I are carriers of this rare disease. And so not only now am I faced with a diagnosis of a balanced translocation, but now I have this rare disease tied to it as well. So I'm given an 80% chance of having a child with one or both of these conditions if I ever chose to get pregnant naturally again. You know, I turned my focus to my son the next year, on what I needed to do to help him. You know, you do anything you can in your power to save your child's life. I flew all over the country. I met with all kinds of specialists. I met cats in a lab that were being tested for a treatment that they were potentially working on. I found out that there was a clinical trial at the NIH for gene therapy for this disease, and I was loud. I was the loudest person that you have ever heard trying to get my son into this trial. Um, you know, this was my mission. He was getting in. I had no idea if it was going to work, or not. I mean, you name them, I called them. Like, this little boy was getting into this trial. Like, that was it. Like, there was no stopping me.
You didn't want
And
the wrath of this mama.
yeah, you're messing with the wrong mama. But I mean, I feel like that's, you know, this is a story that I hear from other rare disease moms, especially the moms. I mean, we just get this fire lit under us that you have never seen before, you know, like, but it's what we got to do. And he got in. He got in, and he was going to be one of the first patients ever in the whole world to be treated with this disease for gene therapy. And that's just a whole nother bag of emotions that came out, right? Is it going to
Right.
work? Is it not going to work? What's the outcome going to be? Um, but I'm also 35, and I don't know, this can't be the end of my story as a mother.
Right.
There's a very good chance he's going to pass away. Like, what, is this it? Like, I have no more children, like, to care for. Like, this is just what I've always wanted.
When you got that
Yeah.
diagnosis, were you focused on that so much, or were you just like, I'm on a mission? And did you have this idea that once he got into the trial and all of those things, that this was like had a greater chance of surviving than not? And the reason I asked that is I remember
Yeah.
my sister, who, when she was diagnosed, it wasn't about the fact that nobody survived it. It was the fact that she couldn't have children. It was like, the thing that most people would focus on, she wasn't focused on. She was more focused on kind of this smaller thing that we thought was a smaller thing. So for you, were you thinking about the ultimate kind of what this meant for your life, or were you more focused on, I just got to like get him better and fix it and make it happen? Or were you like, this is what it is?
No, I was focused on him. I was focused
Uh-huh.
on him. He I mean, to be quite honest, he was dying in front of me. I watched him stop walking. I watched him stop being able to self feed. Like he was a piece, and like pieces of him were dying every day in front of me. And I knew if I did not get him into any treatment, like this was it, right? Like
Yeah.
I was hyper focused on that. And
Mhm.
in the back of my mind, I'm a researcher, I'm a planner. Like I definitely was looking at my options because I knew time was against me, because I didn't, I was, age wise and all of that. But yeah, for the first while I was really focused on that, and so was my husband, and there was absolutely no way he was open to the idea of having children. I mean, he was so consumed by the burden of caregiving, and that is real. Like it is a very difficult job to be a caregiver for, especially in this situation. And
And you're
he,
thrown into it without
yeah, and
like
he's thrown
any
into it. Yeah.
knowledge of like how to navigate it, what to do, where to go, what resources.
Yeah.
And that alone you could write a book on, of just how
Right.
to go through that process
Oh,
to sort it
yes.
out. But then in a relationship too, of each person is grieving and dealing with it in their own way, right? So
Absolutely.
that's another aspect of what is that like for families that are going through it. And not only the relationship of the partner, the husband and wife, or whatever it may be, but the extended family too, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's in their own
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, specifically for my husband and I, like we are dealing with and did deal with it very, very differently. I think he's able to just focus on the day to day more than I'm able to look at the bigger pictures of things. I mean, that's, I think, what maybe gave me some success in my career, is that I could look at the bigger picture of the problem and help solve it, versus just looking at the finite issue just sitting in front of you. And for me, it was the bigger picture, was our family holistically after Darian's treatment, right? What were we going to look like in 15 years, in 20 years? If anything, I've been humbled that I have no control over anything, because I always thought, oh, I had so much control. But this is
Right.
definitely awakened that, that no, you don't. But yeah, I mean, we definitely had some very difficult conversations, like very difficult. I don't want to say I gave him an ultimatum, but I very clearly made it known that I wanted to have more children with or without him. I wasn't going, this wasn't going to, like I said before, be the end of my story. I wanted to hear a child say, "Mom," after all I've been through. I wanted that. I wanted to know what it was like to sit on the bench at the park and watch my kids play, like I was robbed from all of that. So, we're
And
now getting ready. Yeah.
knowing what you had to now with your own diagnosis, right? You and your husband, to know in order to have that, it's going to be a very different experience than what you even
Yeah.
previously
Yeah.
had with IUI or just trying metformin, right? Like
Yep.
that's a whole nother thing. So
Well, our
imagine
options.
what
Yeah.
she's going through with her son and this enormous news, and literally fighting like a warrior on the front line to get him what he needs and deserves, and all of those things, while also knowing the path of growing the family down the future is going to be a completely other direction. And what was that direction?
Yeah, so we had three. Our choices were IVF to do genetic testing, try to get pregnant naturally, and do a CVS around 13 weeks and terminate the pregnancy if it wasn't healthy, or not have more children. And there was no way I was going to do another termination. I just couldn't do it. So Darian was going to be at the NIH for 10 weeks for this treatment. And we decided, I convinced my husband that we needed to create some healthy embryos through IVF. And luckily we had the financial ability to do IVF. And so what we had to do was first create a probe for our specific diseases on our mutation because it's so rare. And that was going to take weeks. So we submitted all of that while we were at the NIH. And as soon as we came back after he got his gene therapy treatment, I had my egg retrieval. And I guess my PCS worked out in my favor because I had 29 eggs and out of that 14 embryos. But remember, 80% were going to have issues. And so we had three healthy embryos out of that. And I'll never forget walking into, and I mean, Elizabeth here is like more than a friend. She is my sister. She is my family at this point. We were so deep in caring for our son that I had very limited support system in what I was going through. And Elizabeth took me to my consultation. And I will forever be grateful for everything that she has done for me. But I remember walking in and he got off the phone with my geneticist. And he looked at me and he was like, well, we can do this. You have no problem getting pregnant. We could just test the embryos. You've got this. And he was so positive. And I rode that positivity throughout all of it. And I said, well, I can get pregnant. I have gotten pregnant. I just need a healthy embryo. And, we had our embryos and we had them frozen for a while because we didn't know what was going to happen to our son because we were sent home after the NIH and said, now we watch and we wait. And unfortunately, it didn't work. He is continuously regressing. We have come to acceptance of what his future is going to be, of his life-limiting disease. We did everything in our power to try to save him. We love him dearly. He is amazing. He is so cute. It's very
Handsome
hard to
boy.
care for. He is a handsome little man. He is 6 years old now. But the reality of caring for a terminally ill child is very difficult. But I was getting older and I again was like, this isn't it for me. So again, a lot of hard conversations, and my husband agreed to transfer one of the embryos and we got pregnant on the first try, and we have our beautiful daughter Mila because of it. We made sure she didn't have the issue with the balance translocation, and we made sure she didn't have GM1 like my son does. And not only does she say mom, but she screams mom at me all day long, and she is a
She's a
feisty
little
toddler.
firecracker.
And yeah, but I have a perspective that a lot of families don't, I guess. I have, I just, every little thing that she does just is amazing to me. And I'm so grateful for it. And, not that I don't get frustrated at the end of the day and tired, but it's just, she has just brought so much joy and laughter and love and into our lives. And just this morning watching her interact with her brother and helping with his G-tube feeds or helping just hold his hand, and how gentle she is. I mean, she's just going to be the most empathetic, accepting little human being. I mean, she already is, and I'm so proud of that. And I'm proud to be her mom.
It's amazing. So back to two things. One, the probe
Yeah.
for anybody who
Yes.
isn't aware of that, because a lot of times we know, well, I'm doing PGD, PGT testing, which basically is saying I'm testing my own embryos for X amount of situations that come up. There's different types of testing, but when you say a probe, can you explain to people who are not aware of like when and why they may need that and what that actually means?
Yeah, so if you have a like a single gene mutation like we do, where it's unique, right? That they don't have these, that isn't visible on these,
General
I
panel.
guess, general panels. What they do is they take DNA from the affected child if it's available. So my son, my husband, and I, we all did some. It's just an oral swab, and they are able to pinpoint the exact mutations within the gene, the GLB1 gene that my son has our mutations on, and they will first, in our case, what they did was they, did the embryos and they let them grow to the blastocysts and they freeze. They do a biopsy, and first they do a screening of the general genetic makeup. Like, are there any big breaks, missing, chromosomes, like for example, like trisomy 21 and the more typical things. And then from there they'll look to see, okay, these are the quote unquote healthy embryos that are genetically, complete. And then they do a specific PGD test with our probe of our mutation to find out which embryos are, they can tell if they're a carrier if they have one of the copies of the missing gene, or if they have two, which would cause to be an affected, to be actually be have the disease. Yeah, and so the embryos, so you can't do like a fresh transfer. Everything has to be frozen, because it takes time to do. They need to biopsy the embryos and to run the various tests from there. But yeah.
And I think it's just good to note as well, because I think you may, no matter how rare they are these days, whatever that situation may be, there's very few situations on the flip side that they can't figure out, like Rojan's and Darian's, and being able to now have this healthy baby. Because, like she said, this is an extremely rare situation that they have with her son. Yet she has this little firecracker running around because they were able to create this probe. So, if anybody's listening who knows that their family is a carrier for something, or they have a concern of, we were told maybe not to have children because of, XYZ or whatever it may be, know that speaking to the right people to get you to what you need to do is possible. You just need to get in front of the right person to help guide you and navigate that process, because there's very few things that they're not able to figure out these days.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have, I mean, it all comes down to you have to have a diagnosis, or to have to
Right.
know what your mutation is.
Right.
If you have the mutation, then yes, to Elizabeth's point, you have options, you
Right.
definitely have options. It may take you a few rounds to get enough, embryos to
Right.
test, but the option is there.
And also, to second that, what you said earlier about his positivity, I mean, I will also never forget. I'm 75% sure I can get you a healthy baby. They certainly weren't saying that to me when I was sitting
Yeah,
across from that same desk in my 40s, So
yeah,
to hear that with what she was facing was like, I'm pretty sure we were like high-fiving and hugging on the way out, because we knew
yeah.
like this was it. It was possible. And the bigger challenge, I think, at that point too, was your husband and getting him on board. And I want to just touch base on that too, because as you mentioned before, just the grieving process and all those things are different. And I think that
Mhm.
that's very normal. So if you're in a situation where you find conflict with your partner through dealing with a new diagnosis like this, with having children in general is a struggle, right? Like, you're not sleeping, you're all these things, let alone if there's something on top of that so devastating as this, you have to allow that space. But the fact that you almost, like, the fight for Mila, right, was like you were very determined that this is what you needed. So how did you hold your own course, and knowing that it was a matter of kind of convincing him, so to speak, and you were kind of determined, like, I don't want to say with or without him, you were kind of going down this path, but in some cases, you knew, again, looking at that bigger picture, that this was so important. And of course, now knowing the end result of this, how grateful all of your family is, and your husband and everybody, and what a joy and a blessing she is. But that, I think, is a really important thing to touch on for couples that are going through it, that somebody is like, I'm not ready and I don't want to do this again, versus you holding the space for him to say, no, I really do think that this will be good.
First of all, is when we had our termination, I found an amazing therapist. And she has been with me from then to this day. And it took a year of therapy to, one, work on myself, to really understand why I wanted Mila, right? I didn't want her to come to fix anything. I wanted the right intention. And I wanted to know that she was going to be okay faced with whatever was going on with our son.
Right.
But during that year, she really helped me work on how to communicate with my husband. We are very different in our communication styles, and the face to face isn't easy. So I tried to see his point a lot. I validated his feelings a lot. I tried to communicate in ways that I thought he would be more receptive, but it took a year. It took a year of, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, really, really hard conversations, really hard. But it was that fire within me, just like with my son. I was determined, and that was it. Like, this was going to happen. I could see it. It was weird. I could just see it. I knew it was going to be there. Like, I had, and maybe because my perspective, I was so focused on my son, but there was never doubt in my mind that I couldn't get pregnant and have a healthy baby. It just never crossed my mind. I don't know. And looking back, I'm like, what was wrong with me? But honestly, like, I don't know. I think maybe, again, with my son, we were just so focused, but I was able to channel that positivity too with my husband and just say, like, listen, like, we're so scared, but we have all of this science that's able to help us make sure she's healthy. We were scared. We were traumatized. Life had screwed us over multiple times, right? Like, we had that fear. I could barely look at her when she was born because I was so scared that we missed something,
Right.
right? So I had to reassure him that these are the steps we took scientifically. And this is, how we were going to get care to. I needed to put the logistics out. Like, we could use this money to help us get a caregiver with our son to give us a break. So, like, that's kind of how I approached it. But
Presenting the
every
data.
family, yeah, he's an accountant. I had to put the spreadsheet out, and like be like, this is the
Right.
plan. And a year later, that's it. He gave in, but now they're best friends.
And again, she's just bringing so much light to everybody, and I can't wait to see how she continues to grow in that way. And also her being on her own platform,
Yeah,
from the perspective of growing up in a home with a big brother that is different, and
yeah,
what that looks like, and how she can communicate and teach others, so that we can build this awareness to other families that are out there. So how
absolutely.
has it been now, having a toddler and having another child that is hard, not your typical child to care for?
Very hard. But there's joyful moments and very hard moments. Like I mentioned, my son's disease is progressive, so he is losing skills day over day. My handle on Instagram is One Heart, Two Journeys. It's one human being watching her children grow in two opposite directions.
Mm-hmm.
Mila we're getting ready to potty train, and getting ready to go to preschool, and we're getting ready to do all of these different things. And meanwhile, I'm, getting a suction machine for my son because he's now having a harder time managing his saliva, and, having harder conversations about end of life care with doctors, it becomes your norm. I still talk to my therapist every week, and I have amazing friends who support me, but the cloud of diagnosis is kind of gone, and I guess it becomes your reality, your day to day. But it's not easy, absolutely not easy. But I enjoy those moments that I have with her, whether it's just a little croissant date, just the two of us, or going to the park. But I'm always trying to find the balance too of spending time with both children and giving Mila that normal experience, right? Like I don't want her to be so just involved in the medical aspect of caring for her son, for her brother either. So it's tough, it's a hard balance to have between the two, but I'm grateful for the breaks that I get with Mila as well.
So you find that you are able to laugh and find those moments of joy, even though despite the other side of things, because I think that's what people are afraid of sometimes. Like, how am I even going to be happy with this new baby if I'm so scared and concerned and worried about my other child, right? And as weird as that situation may be, is it possible to have that same joy and happiness and fear and sadness living side by side?
Absolutely. Or else what is there in life?
Right.
I had a choice to give up and roll over and just let life just roll on top of me, or take it in my own hands and do what I could, to bring some joy into my life. And um yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag. I mean, I'm sitting here, telling you this story. I mean, I went from taking my son to physical therapy this morning and watching him struggle with certain things to we have a play date planned right after this, and it's just all mixed in together, and it's emotional roller coaster, and some days are hard, some days are great, but um it's the life that I'm living. So I've learned to accept it and to not only be the best mom that I can, but really take care of myself too. I self care is not even. I mean, a lot of people are like, go get a massage, but the reality of it is literally self care is sharing my story to help heal, or joining a book club so I can have an adult conversation with someone, or taking a 5-minute walk by myself. I mean, I have to find it where I can, but really, again, one of the reasons why I share is just finding a tribe of people who understand. And one of the people who has really helped me is, I have a friend who is in a similar situation, and being able to just openly and share the struggles and the joys together, of just someone really understanding what you're going through, is just so important, that no one really gets, unless, not my parents, not you, Elizabeth. Like, no one really truly understands what I'm going through, except for another person who's walking a similar journey.
Which I think is key. And I know, having seen Rojan through this process, and when she met this friend, it really did change the outlook of her outlet to this other friend that was able to meet her in a place where nobody else could, and
Yeah.
how significant that is. Because we all hear, I heard it somewhere else yesterday, I think, in passing on the TV, where it was like our any parent's worst nightmare is what Rojan and her friend are living through, this slow process of watching their child pass. And it's not we can say how horrible that must be, but until you're in their shoes and you've seen it and you've lived it with them, as them, we don't know that. So, from a friend of yours, and for people that are listening that support other families that are going through this, what are the things that you would give as advice to somebody who is in the situation that you are, from our perspective? How can we best help support people, that we love, that are going through this type of situation with a genetic situation?
Well, what you're doing, which is to continue to show up. I have had people shy away because they just, it was too hard for them to face. They didn't know how to support me, but really just remember that we are still who we were before, in a sense of, like, we still want to laugh, we still want to go out to have dinner if we can get away, we still want to, quote unquote, have like a normal, like, relationship with a friend. just continue to show up and don't be afraid to ask us what we need, and we will be very clear with like, today is not okay. Like, just, I can't right now. Like, be flexible, know that we're going to cancel because things are always changing in our household. But honestly, it's just to continue to show up and to listen and not tell us that everything's going to be okay and not tell us this has happened for a reason. Like, we don't want to hear that. No, this didn't happen for a reason. I am not strong. I was not built for this. Like, all of those things, like, that is honestly crap. Like, it's shitty. I am suffering. I have moments of joy. I am not stronger than you. I just had no choice, and I'm pulling it together and getting through the day. And I just want a friend to laugh with me and to not talk about medical stuff sometimes. That's it.
Yeah. And over and over, I've seen you make the choices for yourself and your family of, you can lay over and do this, but you get up every time and you move forward and you make the choice of building your family.
Yeah.
You make the choice of taking her to Mexico. You make the choice that may not be the easiest choice, but you also know it's the path of normalcy that you're trying to get back to. And I just want to add that, Rojan was this corporate, boss babe before she had kids, and to really pivot this life to be the full-time stay-at-home mom, caregiver, all the things, and completely slay that, but not only to this learning a whole new world, literally, of all the things. And again, for anybody who is going through it or knows somebody who's going through it, Rojan, how can they find you? Can you mention your handle again? And
Absolutely.
all of the things kind of at a high level that people may expect to come into that they can know resources for, right? Of like, what are the first things that you would suggest if they are just getting this diagnosis of something similar? What do they do, first of all,
Yeah, so my handle is One Heart, Two Journeys. Like I said, I'm here in Southern California. I'm an open book. Reach out to me. I'm happy to support. I mean, I think, there's various foundations that support rare diseases. So I found the Cure GM1 Foundation, which has been an amazing resource for me. The parents get together and we can help each other through this, and we ask questions. So that's number one. I think that's the most important thing, is just finding the right tribe of people, and regardless of the specialists and the doctors that all go with it, but really it's finding those that are walking a similar path.
Right.
Yeah.
And I imagine once you do find that community and that tribe, they help you navigate through all of those things, right? Because they have walked the path before you. And that's always helpful for them to say, call this person, do this, do that. And to see what life is like, the good, bad, and the ugly of what could potentially be coming your way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I am so blessed and honored to be part of it and walking the walk with you. And all of those big moments that you mention, are ingrained in my memory and my heart and will be forever. And I'm just grateful that our paths crossed.
Absolutely.
So
same.
Thanks again for being here and sharing your story and helping everybody on their own journey.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Creation Innovation Podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify for free episodes and subscribe to the Creation Innovation Podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you choose to get your podcast. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening for a chance to receive a special gift. Yes, we actually do send out gifts. It's my favorite thing to do. So visit us at elizabethking.com/creation innovation for more information on how to enter. Every review counts, and we are so grateful. You can follow me at the official Elizabeth King on Instagram or TikTok. Until next time.